Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you for your patience for this scheduled voting session. We have 10 bills today on our agenda. We'll start with House Bill 10. Delegate Lutke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 10 is a small adjustment in the existing credit subtraction modification for living organ donors. It's just essentially an inflation adjustment, has a very small fiscal note. It came out unanimously from the subcommittee. Move favorable.
Second.
Motion and 2 seconds. I love it. But you can only be on screen to do that, Delegate. Any questions on the bill? All right. All those in favor of House Bill 10, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. House Bill 421, Delegate Lutke again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 421 is a bill that creates a Maryland program to help fund volunteer lawyer services that assist people who have legal needs related to interactions with the IRS and the Comptroller's Office. It's modeled on a similar federal program, grant program administered by the IRS. So, helps low income, helps train lawyers, helps resolve issues related to tax filings. The committee made a few adjustments to the bill and the amendments. The amendments essentially do 3 things. First of all, they move oversight of the program from MHAC, which really isn't the appropriate agency to run this program, to the Comptroller's Office. They decrease the first year's funding from $250,000 to $100,000. That money comes directly out of the income tax distribution, which is why we're able to fund it in the first year. Following that first year, the fund will become fully appropriatable and subject to the appropriations decisions of future governors and budget committees. So it was unanimous. Move the amendments.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions on the amendments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And on the bill as amended?
Move favorable.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All right. Delegate Lasanti.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Can you refer citizens to that if you have like a constituent issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are existing programs that simply need additional support.
Okay.
And there's actually 3 major programs in the state that do this, including clinics at both of the law schools, as well as the Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Great. Maybe everyone needed that information. Thank you.
I did. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor of the bill as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, excellent. House Bill 539.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 539 is another small adjustment in the tax credit. This is really kind of a technical fix. It's identical to a bill that was passed by the committee last year. It rolls in what are called curatorships in our state parks into the historic revitalization tax credit. So these are properties that are not currently eligible because technically they're owned by the state, although they're in long-term agreements with curators who invest often hundreds of thousands of dollars in restoring these historic properties. So small fiscal note, significant impact on historic preservation. The subcommittee was unanimous. Move favorable.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that passed unanimously as well. House Bill 656, Delegate Wilkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 656 requires a local bus operating on a fixed route within 1/2 mile of an early voting center to stop at the center during the time that early voting is open. We do have an amendment on this bill that actually changes the bill to do what I just said. As the bill was introduced, it actually required that voting centers be placed within 1/2 mile of the bus route. So what the amendment does is flip that and make it so that if there's a bus route that's close by to a early voting center, that it makes that stop during early voting. I move the subcommittee amendment.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions about the amendment?
What was the distance again, Delegate Wilkins, the distance of the route from the center where it had to divert during the early voting days?
Sure, a half mile.
Half mile. For some reason, I said 500 yards, and I couldn't remember if that's not right. A half mile is a different thing. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, half mile would be about 850 yards.
Yes.
So just to clarify for everyone else, this might answer your question, Delegate Hartman, I had the same question. As designed, the bill would have made the voting centers have to move. And in this case, if the route is within half a mile of a early voting site, it only has to divert during those early voting days.
Correct.
And if there's not, nothing happens, right? If it's just a route that has no early voting center within a half mile, there's no change at all.
Exactly.
Correct. Sorry for jumping in there, Delegate Wilkins. Sorry about that. Delegate Hartman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what happens to the folks who are on the bus route as far as if it strays away from the typical route? Are people left stranded, or does it go back and it just delays, alters the time or something?
Since it's just half a mile, it should be a short detour along the route. So for people who are not doing early voting, they'll experience just a short detour just for that about a week during early voting. So we don't expect it to be something that's super disruptive.
But they won't stop, Delegate Hartman.
They'll do the regular stops as well.
They're just adding a stop, not taking one away.
But you're right that it will slow things down by adding a stop for the people who have the stop in between their starting and their end point. That is true. Did you have another question, Delegate Hartman?
No, I'm good. Thanks. I'll take my little.
All right, Delegate Guyton.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair, Subcommittee Chair. I know this is similar to a bill that I had that tried to locate voting centers closer to places that did have public transportation. Is there anything in this bill that actually does that? And is there anything in this bill that works to discourage boards of election from placing polling places, outside that half a mile away from the bus stop, so that they don't actually have to divert the buses?
No, this bill does not have to do with placement of the early voting center where they're located. It's looking at their existing locations and making sure that folks who might have limited transportation access for taking the bus are able to get access via the bus stopping. So that's another bill. That's your bill. And we have not moved that yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Delegate Long?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have real concerns about this bill because it's a half a mile either way. And one of the things that I brought up in subcommittee is people, depending on mass transit, get back and forth to work. And that's if the buses can actually turn around at the voting centers. I know we have one early voting center that MTA bus is not going to be able to turn around. So I don't know how that's going to work.
Say that again, Delegate Long. I'm sorry, I missed the last part that you said.
Okay. It's a half a mile one way, but if you look at it at a logistical point, it's actually a mile because it's a half a mile each way. The other part that I'm concerned about is the buses be able to make a turn around and go back to their bus route at the early voting centers. We have a voting center, early voting center down here in Dundalk that MTA bus is not going to be able to turn around in. So that means he's going to have to even detour even further to turn around and come back. That's my concern. We have that particular bus route. Those people ride that to go to work, to Trade Point Atlantic. It's a direct bus route. That's my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Long. This is an amendment and change that we worked out with MACO. So we did work with the counties on this. And I feel confident that in general, it may be a minor inconvenience for some individuals who are taking the bus. However, I think it pays major dividends for people who don't have other ways to get to early voting, for them to be able to have this service that would stop right in front of the early voting center. I think buses will be able to find a way to detour and come back around.
Right. One of the things I had mentioned something about MTA mobility. If, I'm sure people that use that or be able to use that for early voting. Like I said, I'm just concerned about the detour and how much time it's going to take to be able to make that detour. Thank you.
All right, think we've answered the questions. The amendment has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Who's opposed? Raise your hand.
It doesn't matter. I'm not going to support the bill.
Okay, Rose and Buckle and Hartman.
Yeah.
If you're gonna say it, I'm just trying to make sure we keep count and long.
We're just on the amendment though, right
We're
now.
just on the
Yeah, that's
amendment.
just on the amendment.
Because yeah, I mean, previously you would have had to move your early voting sites. So, all right, and then on the bill as amended, Delegate Wilkins?
Move favorable as amended.
Second.
Motion and a lot of seconds. Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of the bill say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please raise your hand so we can identify one. All right, party line vote to Sarah and Pat. And again, for our big crowd of listeners today, that's just our shorthand for speeding up our process there, not a comment meant in any other way. All right, you guys have that, Sarah and Pat?
Yes, we're good. Thank you.
All right, House Bill 711.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 711, I do have some concerns about the fact that we're letting so many D. Jones bills out of the House so quickly this year.
Are you confusing her with A. Jones by some?
I am not. I think we should pass as many A. Jones bills as we can. But this is nonetheless a very good bill. So what it does is create a new subtraction model to try to incent donation of diapers to diaper banks. It's got a small fiscal note as per the subcommittee's growing policy the last few years. We added a sunset to it and data collection. So as amended, within 3 years, we should get data back about whether this subtraction modification has actually increased donations to diaper banks and be able to make future donation decisions about possibly extending the credit. And it ended up coming out unanimously again. So move the amendment.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions? All right, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And on the bill as amended, Delegate Lukey?
Move favorable.
Delegate Jones, would you like to second?
Second.
All right. Any questions on the bill as amended? All right, all those in favor of the bill, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you. House Bill 815, Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The bill clarifies that legislation passed in 2019 to increase the agricultural land transfer on certain properties does not apply to land transfers under a contract dated before July 1st, 2019, which was the effective date of the bill. Move favorable.
Second.
All right, any questions on this bill? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, I just mostly look for hands there, or, okay. All right, excellent. That's unanimous. House Bill 853, Delegate Lukey.
Madam Chair, House Bill 853 is a departmental bill. It's basically a technical bill just to make clear that the Small Minority and Women-Owned Business Account has the ability to turn loans into grants and then forgive those loans. And the amendment makes it an emergency bill so that they can do so sooner. Move the amendment.
The amendment's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Any opposed? Right, on the bill as amended?
Favorable.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, House Bill 888, Delegate Lukey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Because there are ongoing conversations with the localities in this bill, we're going to hold over this bill. It's nothing. We're just trying to make sure we get it right and get it right for the 3 counties who would be affected.
And so as I understand it, some of the counties have been fixing this on the local end, so we're trying to ensure we don't need the state legislation. Is that correct?
We're trying to make sure that the state legislation doesn't accidentally do less for folks than what the counties are doing.
Okay, so just to ensure anyone listening who cares about this, we're still trying to make it work. All right, House Bill 1048, Delegate Wilkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 1048 allows a voter to request to be placed on a permanent absentee ballot list. The local board of elections would send the absentee ballot to each voter who is on this list every time there's an election, and PE would also work to maintain an accurate list.
Favorable.
And what was, I'm sorry, what was the amendment on this?
Yes, Madam Chair, we did have an amendment that was more so technical, changed a few words and a few dates in the bill. Move the amendment.
Second.
Delegates Hornberger or Plakovich-Cars, your question on the amendment? On the amendment, Plakovich-Carr, Delegate Plakovich?
Yes,
Go ahead.
thank you, Madam Chair. And maybe if Stan can just, I think he's on this call, if he can just confirm. So my reading of the amendment was it makes clear that someone who's requesting to be on the permanent absentee ballot list doesn't have to fill out a separate application. And instead, it's just, there's one application to get an absentee ballot, and there's going to be probably a question on it to designate whether or not you want to be on the permanent list. Do I have that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, but you're asking on the
Thank you.
bill, trying to clarify if anyone has.
No,
any-
that was in the amendment. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I believe that was in the amendment.
Oh,
Yes.
was it? Oh,
Yes.
my bad, I apologize. I thought the
Yes,
amendment was technical, my bad.
So to be clear, I mean, it was a very small change. It's like 3 words, but to be clear, what Delegate Plakovich-Carr is referring to is, since we already have an absentee ballot application, we'll keep that application and just someone can check that they want to sign up for the permanent list instead of having an entirely new application. So that was just the couple words that was changed in the bill to allow for that.
All right, thank you for that, my education as well. Any other questions on the amendment? All right, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and on the bill as amended, is there a motion?
Move favorable as amended.
Second.
And now I know there are questions. I'll ask the first one, Delegate Wilkins. I've heard concerns on a permanent absentee ballot list would not allow the Board of Elections to clean their data and would allow for bad data over time. How is that being dealt with in this bill?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As we discussed in the hearing, the list would be maintained. So in terms of removing individuals from the list, someone can request to be removed, of course. If they're removed from the statewide voter registration list and the ways that that list is maintained and cleaned, then they would be removed from this list. Also, if they fail to return their absentee ballot for 2 consecutive statewide elections, they would be removed. And then if any mail is sent, any election-related mail is sent by the board and it's returned undeliverable, that person would also be removed. So there are several steps in terms of making sure that someone who's on that list is cleaned up and going to the right people.
All right, thank you. 2 more questions. Delegate Hornberger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is probably more of a question for council. I have a super nuanced issue in Cecil. So we have school board members who, obviously participate in the primary. They are nonpartisan. During this last election cycle, folks that requested a mailed ballot did not receive a ballot because they were registered as nonpartisan. In other words, they were an independent register. So my question to you is, if I'm on this list, and the bill passes, and I am not affiliated with a political party, will I still receive a mailed ballot so that I can vote for school board members and other nonpartisan races?
Yeah, I mean, this would apply if there is a nonpartisan school board race in the county, then they would receive a ballot for that primary election.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Delegate Long?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the concerns that I have is we had actually heard in this committee about where MVA had not updated their list and sent it over to the Board of Elections. I think it was a year or 2 ago. I don't know if anybody remembers that. We talked about it. People had change of addresses and it was not updated to the Board of Elections. And I'm a little concerned about that. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, whatever it's worth.
Well, Delegate Wilkins, is that addressed by some of the cleaning up you discussed?
Well, what Delegate Long is referring to was a one-time error that took place, and SBE came before us and explained it, and it was cleaned up. I invite Stan to share more, but the specific situation Delegate Long is mentioning was a one-time error that was brought to our attention and was addressed.
Yeah, the
Right,
MBA really did clean that up very thoroughly. That's heavily audited and monitored now, and they're keeping up with it.
Yeah, I think we
Well-
had that special briefing on it, and
Right.
and I was actually, after being critical of the MBA administrator, I was actually quite impressed with all that she had to say that day on the cleanup.
Right. Well, I still have the same concerns as what happened. Not only that, but we have people that are dying that maybe not being removed from the voting list. We want to make sure that our elections are at the utmost not be able to be questioned because of what's happened in 2021 or 2020, the presidential election. And I feel that this could shed some bad light on the situation. That's, again, that's my opinion for what it's worth. Thank you.
Delegate
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Wilkins, please address that first.
Sure, yes. I just want to clarify that our boards do receive death records and remove people. And under this bill, anyone who is removed from our voter registration list because they have unfortunately passed away would also be removed from this permanent absentee list.
I agree. If we lived in a perfect world, that would be fine. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. Things happen. And that's my concern. Thank you.
All right, Delegate Lukey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Wilkins, how many other states allow for permanent absentee lists?
Several. I don't have the actual number in front of me, but this is something that's being done in a few other states and done very well.
So it's not new, right? This has been
No,
going
it's
on
not
for a
new.
while elsewhere. Okay.
Yes,
Have
that's
you heard
correct.
of any instances of significant fraud related to this type of absentee list?
I have not. And in the recent election, as you know, we mailed to everyone in the primary, and we saw no instances of fraud. So I'm confident that with this affirmative sign up and our cleanup aspects that we will be safely expanding the vote for people.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I appreciate and understand the concerns that we just heard. I think, however, that making decisions about people's access to their basic voting rights based on hypotheticals is not the right way to go around making election law. And, the theoretical possibility that something could happen does not outweigh the fact that for a lot of people, particularly seniors and people with disabilities, absentee or mail-in voting is the most efficient way for them to exercise their most fundamental constitutional right. I think, look at it that way, I think this bill is clearly a necessity.
All right, thank you.
Madam
Anybody?
Chair,
Yeah, yes, Delegate Long.
all due respect, I understand what he's saying, but the problem is we did have a hearing that talked about how MVA didn't transfer the records over. That's disturbing to me. We want to, like I said, we want to make sure that whatever we do, that we make sure that whatever voting we do, that's pure and it's not any questions to what happens. And
Well, I think echoing Delegate Lukey's point that the concerns about fraud, but at the same time, from his perspective, the outweighing of the how this allows those who are seniors or disabled to be able to vote is, I think, from his perspective, outweighs it. But I think we're allowed to agree to disagree. We'll have the vote in a second. Delegate Buckle?
That's really all I was going to say, Madam Chair, is I think there are some fundamental good faith differences between the parties' views on absentee balloting and the opportunities for the ability to properly tabulate and count, the abilities for fraud. I don't think anyone's alleging or claiming that there's direct evidence of widespread fraud or schemes to defraud through absentee balloting, but it's certainly a process that lends itself a little bit more to that than in-person voting may. And so as a result, I think that's why many of our members of the committee would oppose the bill, even though we support the position that we're trying to get as many people to have the opportunity to vote as possible. And it's really just as simple as that.
Delegate Jones?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just wanted to add, unfortunately, I'm sorry, to the conversation that I've heard from so many stay-at-home mothers in my district who are absolutely love the ability, juggling so much that they do, with the ability to absentee vote. And so I'm looking forward to supporting this bill.
All right, thank you. Delegate Lasanti?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say that, of course, we're interchanging the words mail-in and absentee ballot. I used the mail-in ballot during this past election because I had heard a lot of concerns coming from people about security and things like that, and so I chose to use that process. And I want to say I was very, very impressed at how efficiently and transparently it was implemented. All the steps through the steps of the process. I got an email informing me from the Board of Elections that my ballot had been received, when it had been counted. If I had mailed in person, I would not have received that level of information about my personal ballot. So for that reason, I support this, and I think it's a great idea.
All right, Delegate Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would like to say that the residents and the voters in Southern Maryland, particularly Charles County, and those in the rural communities, were really appreciative of the chance to have a mail-in ballot because transportation is limited. And also for those who work 2 jobs or were unable to meet the voting times prescribed. So I gladly offer my support for this.
All right, thank you. We've had a motion and a second on the amended bill. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. I'm seeing right now 5 hands plus Delegate Rose. So this Delegate Rose texted me saying my internet went out, it's rebooting. I'm no on 1048. Party line minus Hornberger on House Bill 1048. Sarah and Pat, you got that?
Thank you. Yes,
All
we
right.
have it. Thanks.
All right, and on the last bill, House Bill 1137, Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill authorizes county and municipal governments to grant a property tax credit for real or personal property owned or leased by a business entity affected by a declared state of emergency. Move the bill.
Second.
All right, wait 1 second. I'm readmitting Delegate Branch, who got kicked out, who's now back. All right, on House Bill 1137, are there any questions? Seeing no questions, all those in favor of House Bill 1137, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and for the record, Delegate Rose is in favor of House Bill 1137 as well. To members, I'm going to let the subcommittee chairs do quick announcements, but before I do, I just want to point out that this Friday, no hearings, next Wednesday and Friday, no hearings, and that following week before crossover, 0 hearings, though there will probably be some added to deal with some big education bills that might be coming, that are likely coming out soon. They have opportunities for subcommittee work session time and really working through some bills. So pay attention to that. So while our colleagues in other committees are doing hearings, we'll have a lot of work time on some bills. So stay tuned for that. Any announcements, Mr. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Education Subcommittee will meet tomorrow at 12.
And on Wednesday as well, is that correct?
On Wednesday at 12, yes.
Everyone stay tuned to the internet there for it, but yes, twice this week. Delegate Ebersole?
With fingers crossed that the Wednesday Education Subcommittee meeting is 30 minutes or less. Early childhood will meet on Wednesday at 12:30. Handful of bills to get through. It might take a little while.
All right. Delegate Barnes?
Local revenues will meet on Thursday. Stay tuned for the time, but it'll probably be 12:30.
Delegate Wilkins?
Nothing to report yet in terms of meeting, but stay tuned.
Delegate Lutke?
The revenue subcommittee will meet at 9 a.m. or sorry, 9:15 a.m. on Thursday.
And Delegate Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had our first, Racing and Gaming had its first subcommittee work group today. We will have 2 more this week, so be on the lookout for those days and times. Thank you.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Hope everyone's doing well. I know a lot of us had maybe a rougher Friday night and Saturday from the second shot, but I'm glad to see everyone today seemingly doing very well, and see you tomorrow. Have a good day.